Whenever you're ready. Sure.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. The time is 7:01 p.m. on Monday, September 11th, 2023. I'd like to call this Heritage Advisory Committee meeting to order. The town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands on which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nations community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and waters of this territory. We are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and Chippewas, recognized through Treaty Number 13, as well as the Williams Treaty of 1923. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a brighter future. May I please get a motion to approve the agenda as circulated, as amended and circulated? Bob, John, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, could I get a motion to receive the meeting minutes of the July 31st, 2023 meeting? John and David, any comments or questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Delegations, we have one delegation, 6.1, Christopher Watts, resident, 3 irregularities with the 2006 Town of Aurora street naming policy. Welcome to the table, Christopher. You have 5 minutes.
Just seeing that this slide deck that I put together is about 28 slides deep. That 5 minutes, I will probably not be able to speak fast enough to do that. I don't know. I see that you've got other business. I'm at the pleasure of the committee if you prefer to do that and bring this back like in a different order at the end of the meeting.
How much time do you think you'll need?
About 10 minutes maybe, and then resulting in discussion.
Is the committee okay with that? Seeing no objections. Got 10 minutes.
Okay, there's our slide. So I see some familiar faces around, maybe, and then some of you don't know me. So my name is Christopher Watts. I live on Banff Drive. I've been a resident of Aurora for 20 years. For about 10, maybe about 12 of those years, I've run a small consultancy and heritage service providership in the town and done a bunch of projects. In doing one recently for remembering about 14 fallen RCAF pilots in World War II, I had a little bit of a off the track kind of a path when I was trying to track them down through the streets of honor here in Aurora. And in doing so, I've spoken with Adam about some irregularities I was finding with the policy that speaks to how that is done. I wanted to bring it to this committee's attention so that it can then be where it is appropriately with inside of staff or up to council to see some resolutions. And I prepared some of those in the end slides. Can we move on to the next one? Sorry. Go ahead.
The next slide.
So from the document that I received from Adam, the policy actually is from 2001, updated in 2006. There's really no mention as to what pieces of it was updated at that time, but it seems to be well outdated and needs to be looked at. Next slide. What I've done is I've gone to the Senate staff, and here you've looked at, a total set of names, and I've found X amount of streets that are a subset of the total amount of names for representing those fallen members. Can we do the next one? Same thing with the altar of sacrifice. So first one is World War I, second one is World War II. Next slide. So if you take those and put those together and then add in the street name bank that the town currently has, There's an additional 37 names, but only 7 of those are for fallen members. So next slide. We combine all that out and we're really looking at a small percentage of under 50% of 126 names being represented on streets here in Aurora. So this just feels a little bit disproportionate. What I wanted to do, and then we don't have a lot of time, but thank you for the extension, is I wanted to put faces behind names, especially ones that got rejected from the region. So we all know that the region will look at these things and come up with rationale for why streets can't be advanced. But I think that there is opportunity here. So can we go through, we'll go through 4, I don't have time this evening to go through more, but I'm going to go through 4 names, 4 actual people here, and just give you a little bit of like a snapshot of who they were. That, you know, these are people. So this is actually from a family of 3 brothers, all of them. This guy was a commando, came back to retrain as a pilot. His 2 brothers were pilots. 2 brothers didn't make it, and his 3rd brother was a prisoner of war. He actually has a grave marker here in Aurora. We go to the next slide. His brother's not so fortunate. So there is no known grave marker for Perry King, and for both of them, there is no street recognition. The next one. Sergeant George Elvin Davis is actually quite an interesting one because just last month there was remnants of the plane that he crashed in found, and I've been speaking to an author, so he's featured in a book profiling high profile Spitfire pilots. The next one. And we have another pilot here, which if you read the profile on his fateful day, he ended up being quite a hero, saving 2 of the pilots out of his plane just by taking the command of it and basically landing it. So this is just a crosscut of 4 heroes that haven't been honored in Aurora's streets. They're all have tight connections with Aurora. You can see here, I've had a profile. Are they a student? Did they work with inside of the town? These people did. Can we go to the next one? So leaving that behind for a second is when you get into street names, there are streets in town. Steckley Street is an example. The next one as well. Hill Street is another where you have 2, which are likely brothers, but they don't end up having individual streets, even though they are unique and at different ends and contributed differently in the war. They're just kind of assumed to be, well, we can't do that, so we're going to push it together and you get a single street name. Go forward. On page 4 of the policy, there is a section that stipulates that all signs honoring those on the cenotaph should have a poppy. And when I went through this, that wasn't the case. So right now, there are streets that do not have poppies. These aren't the complete showcase of them, but I've just put them in there so you can look at them and see that, yeah, okay, these are active snapshots of last week. They don't have poppies. And poppies, I would have thought, would have been attributed to the sign as soon as the policy went into place, but that hasn't been the case. So what happened is with a case of Lloyd Chadburn is he ended up getting a poppy sometime between a Google Street View snapshot of 2020 and today. But he hasn't had one for however, and Chadburn Street's been there since the mid 80s. So a considerable amount of time. So the question ultimately is, these poppies are getting applied in this kind of weird format retroactively with no kind of reference made in any reports. When we look at streets, some streets will intersect multiple times. Some of the signs will have a poppy on one, but not on another. Seems weird that you would commit that and not go through the effort of having the poppy on all signs. The next slide. And then when you get to some, here's one example of Monkman Court is there's a tiniest poppy placed on the right-hand side. It's probably not legible here where we're looking at this photo, but it looks like it's done to save the expense of actually reprinting the sign and not to, I guess, follow the format of the previous signs that we've seen. Forward. Some signs will have poppies that have been there for 20 years, I guess, at this point and have faded. And there really is no reason for that. What should happen in a policy, obviously, is that there's due care and attention and a schedule with these. And there is precedent with Toronto confirming that with their signs. Next one. The interesting thing that's missing from the policy is there's no mention of veterans. So the policy only stipulates that poppies go on to cenotaph recorded fallen members, But even though some of those have been forgotten, we have signs here. These are two people that aren't on the cenotaph. They're veterans. They have copies. I'm not here to debate whether it should or shouldn't be. I'm just saying there's an irregularity there, and probably the policy needs to adjust so that everything is in line. Next slide. Then we get to Folliot Street. So Folliot Street, well, there is a Folliot on the altar of sacrifice, but not the way it's spelled on the sign. So we have a Folliot with one T, but Folliot actually is spelled with two T's. Can we get to the next slide? So this is Eric Walter Folliot. That's who the street is named after. Again, he has a connection in through Aurora. And I'm just questioning whether collectively as a town, we're happy honoring this person with a town sign that has misspelled his name. Next. So there's quite a few of these that I guess we'll go through really quickly, but they just kind of get down to the brass tacks of should a formal audit be done that looks at this policy from all angles and determines, because I know that there's an operations team that goes and puts the signs. There's obviously the planning departments connected to this this effort, that there needs to be something in there that speaks to the overlap and the better coordination between the departments to make sure that these kind of things don't repeat themselves. Next slide. My feeling is there's 68 missing names to basically go back to the region to be reconsidered. And where I was getting some kind of feedback as to how things get rejected, they can end up being names that sound similar. So I've tried to provide here possible solutions for that, whether it's using different prefixes or suffixes, whether it's incorporating names. So instead of just using solidly the last name, there should be a greater effort there to kind of look at all the permutations and combinations to try and reclaim these 68 missing names. Next one. What you'll also find is there's the duplication of names. So when we were talking about Hill Drive and Steckley, so we've got one, Davis Road is actually named for Ernest Davis, but we had seen a profile for George Elvin Davis. So he hasn't received a street. They're two completely different people from two completely different boards, let alone theaters. That some consideration needs to be done about these unique individuals. Next slide. And then with the Poppy solution, I came through and I gave you all those visuals. So it's just try and go through these and filter through them and go, hey, you know, maybe we put the poppies on both sides. Maybe we create a solution for proper maintenance of poppies that get erected, maybe that they're more uniform, kind of that nature. The Legion, from best practices in other municipalities, is involved in this process, but the policy crafted here in Aurora makes no mention of Legion. I contacted them today and they were completely out of the loop on all of this. So I think, again, what needs to happen is tighter coordination between not only internal partners, but external partners as well. Next slide. Folliot Street can't live like that in my mind. I look at that and it's just a big insult. Now, obviously with these members, Folliot, and I looked at his family tree and whatever, he didn't have any descendants. So there's nobody to speak for Eric Folliot, which is why I'm here tonight. These people have no voice. They need the community to be the voice to say that this cannot stand. And there are 25 addresses on this street. My leaning towards this is that street name has to change on that street, because as soon as you try and make another Folliot Street, you enter another can of worms. Next slide. What kind of pains me is there's really interesting things happening, and these things have stood for almost 10 years now in other municipalities where they've really taken the charge and used their GIS divisions of their town to plot all of these streets. So somebody doesn't have to go and figure this out. They can go and use a map and understand the rich cultural heritage that's in behind this and why these streets are named this way. And they offer it out to the community at large. And I really think there needs to be a better appreciation of using the town resources through all of its partners, museum, archives, places like the Legion, and compile something like this, because otherwise we are leaving quite a few people behind. Next slide. That's just a closing slide of people that were basically helpful in kind of pulling this together, this research, and definitely Adam at the forefront. So that's for your consideration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Christopher. Can I get a motion to receive the comments of the delegation for information? Bob, any comments or questions?
staff?
I have a comment, or actually a question, if you don't mind. Am I okay to call you Christopher? Okay with
Yep,
that, Mr.
that's
Watts?
fine.
So this area that I have a lot of experience and I'm very interested in. So I'm curious about, are you mainly focused on the veterans from World War I or World War II because that's who's memorialized on the cenotaph, or are you in the process of doing any research on the veterans from Aurora who have fought in other theaters of war? And if so, are you hoping that they also get memorialized in the street naming process?
Okay, so maybe there's two parts of this. With respect to this, I was just looking at how it was prescribed in the policy. So the policy is only specifically speaking to the cenotaphs for fallen members, not veterans. So I was putting that one slide in there to say maybe there should be some more consideration to veterans, but I'm not doing any more research with respect to any of this. It's kind of now in a position where it can be taken somewhere else. The research that I'm doing separate from this was only to deal with World War II, only to deal with 14 members, and that's going forward on a different project. Yeah.
And I think the second thing that I was just wondering, based on your comments about the ArcGIS and sort of furthering our understanding of the role of these individuals in the history of Aurora, have you considered community partnerships, integrating maybe some people, a youth group, getting them to start doing some of that work? Because that is, I think, an untapped resource, given that a lot of students in high schools are doing work like this, and maybe there's a situation where the left hand maybe doesn't know what the right hand is doing, because I think that this is something that they would, well, many of them are doing this kind of work in school, and they could easily do some of that heavy lifting, I think, even when it comes to identifying who's missing and why they should be memorialized, doing some of that, justifying why those streets should be named after them. So I was wondering if you'd done any outreach like that.
Outreach in respect to finding partners to pull together to do that? No, but I can tell you that before the curator of the Museum and Archives was let go, had a meeting with GIS staff and herself to discuss exactly doing this and trying to find the technical feasibilities to do it. And it is very, very doable. So I did mention to Adam that I do have an interest and would be able to kind of work with alongside a department to do this, but it definitely needs a coordinated effort. And I'm just hopeful that by looking at that and going, geez, we're way behind what other municipalities are doing, that somebody looks at it and goes, that's a worthwhile effort, especially in light of what has happened with the street naming today.
Yeah, I think you raise an important point that it is very doable. And I know we talked about this at 2 meetings ago, engaging young people in the local history of Aurora. And this is a really effective way of doing that. And the ArcGIS, to people my age and maybe older, might be a little bit complicated unless you work in that area. But I can tell you, having done lots of mapping with ArcGIS with young people, it's very intuitive for them. And it's something that they could very easily do. So I think that's something to consider moving forward.
Great, thanks. Any other comments, questions, Bob, then John?
I'm glad I was sitting in front of my computer when Linda sent this to us the late afternoon today. I'd like to
just move your microphone.
I'd like to thank Christopher for all of his efforts. I wish I had the expertise to put together such a PowerPoint. I support what he's trying to make us aware of 100%. To Christopher, I would say, to all of us, I would say Christopher once upon a time was sitting as a member of this committee back when we could, as a committee, make a recommendation to council. And I'm not sure if Christopher is aware that we make comments these days. I kind of think that it would be beneficial if Christopher was willing to share this presentation, just as he did with us in, I think, less than 10 minutes with town council. I think it's impactful. I think the policy definitely needs some revision. I think it needs a bunch of eyes looking at it to find the gaps and the holes and the errors and the missing pieces of whatever's missing. not that it's necessarily up to Adam, but perhaps he can, well, I think it needs a thrust from council, not just a few comments from this committee. Thanks.
Yes, I was going to echo exactly what Bob said. In other words, Heritage Committee can make suggestions, recommendations, but the council can make decisions. And I believe that if you put this presentation together, not quite as fast, to council, there would be a lot more understanding, not understanding, but action as a result of this. It is important. And some of those names I've seen on there today, I've seen in the past. And it's very, very important that Aurora should recognize those individuals. And so I believe, as you said, it's a bit of a mismatch that they have right now. Other municipalities have done a better job, and I think we ought to step up to it.
Thank you, Christopher, for coming forward. It's never easy to do a presentation where you're pointing out what may be flaws, seen as flaws. Just for the record and for the committee and maybe some new members, I'm privy to some of your family history, but would you mind giving us a little bit of an idea, like your connection, your passion for those who have served, maybe a family connection, and your connection to your local family history? I think the committee would be interested to know where the passion comes from.
The reason I picked the project that I'm currently involved in is my great aunt, Flo Murray, passed away. I'm trying to think, it's got to be about 10 years ago at this point. Before she did, she and Richard Hunter, who was following Lloyd Chadbourn's exploits through the war, created a very large scrapbook. And what they did was the Probus Club, they went and made a presentation. And throughout all that, basically provided new life and new interest, where unfortunately that hero has kind of been left to fall to the wayside, at least collectively, through all the organizations here in town. And I didn't feel that that was appropriate. So there's that connectivity. One of the 14 fallen airmen that I'm featuring in my project is a relation through the same relation of that side of the family, which is a Banbury connection. And I have a great uncle that actually survived the entire war, but was a flight instructor for the RCAF. So there's a bunch of different pieces that kind of push me towards this. But being here in town and driving around and seeing streets just kind of made me look at that as a piece, kind of going, I don't think these things lined up. So I'm bringing it to this committee because I have found that in the past, if I bring something to council's immediate first reaction is to defer. So it would defer to this committee. Then I'd come here and do this as an exercise. So I've tried the other approach. I've done this as a pass for you guys. I completely agree. If it needs to then go and be represented to council, if council is not going to take it upon themselves to do this and move it upwards, I'm happy to do that as well, but that's why I came to this committee first.
Chris, just a question. Chadbourne, you mentioned in your presentation that Oshawa recognized Chadbourne and that had done more to bring his name to the fore than maybe Aurora has. But I believe, I'm not 100% certain, there was a book written about Chadbourne, and I've read the book. And also there's a house up on the hill here on Young Street that the committee here stopped from being desecrated by a nearby business that wanted to tear it down, and I'll build right next to it. So Aurora has been recognizing, for example, Chadbourne to some extent. I just want to throw that out as a, there has been some action on that.
The reason I brought up Oshawa was the street sign connectivity. So
Yes.
They did their street sign in 2006, put a poppy on it and ran.
Okay.
Or we didn't. So that was the discrepancy there as it applied to the presentation. But City of Oshawa Squadron has an air cadet squadron that's named after Chadburn, which is why one of the commanding officers of that squadron wrote that book, which I'm in contact with right now for his research and stuff. They've done a considerably greater job of honoring that word,
Yes.
even though his actual connectivity and the way he's referred to in all of the articles in the scrapbook bring him home as an Aurora boy. So I do feel that he has been neglected by several organizations within the town, given where other ones picked up. But
Just a comment, congratulations again, a great presentation. And from a standpoint, like, I believe there are a lot more stories we haven't harnessed yet, like Lloyd Chadburn's. One of the reasons I do walking tours in the town and why I'm inspired is actually Lloyd Chadburn. When I found out that here's a guy that proposed to his girlfriend at a bank in downtown Aurora, she turns him down. He doesn't whine and cry. What does he do? He joins the RCAF and becomes known as the angel for, you know, guiding his peers through combat. And I'm going, and by the way, from a single family running a family business at the chateau. And I'm going, well, I'm inspired. And that's where a lot of my energy came from. There's a lot more stories like that. And I think you're going to help us bring some of those forward.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
So just to clarify, I think ideally what you're hoping for is to have a systemic reassessment of the poppies, the signs, updating them, and then adding to what is already in place, and doing that in a very sort of formulaic, consistent manner.
yeah, I think the policy is long overdue for being reformed. And I think once the policy is being reformed, it's not just a Band-Aid patch here and a Band-Aid patch there. It's holistically pulled apart, looked at, reassembled, and then extensions from it that I've kind of shown, hopefully are added into continuation of it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bob kind of hit the nail on the head here. We can only provide comments and not necessarily recommendations, but I fully support the initiative. I think it's something that should have been done long ago. So I just want to voice my support for this, and I have a feeling we do probably have unanimous support for this, seeing Kevin somewhat nod his head there as well. So thanks for taking the time to come in. I think it's, like I said, something that's long overdue, something that needs to be done, and you have my full support.
Thanks, Jeff.
Just some trivia, if I could throw it in. My brother and I were recently clearing stuff out of my dad's house, and I found 3 autograph books that were my mother's when she was a kid. She grew up in Aurora, and the first autograph in one of the books is Chadburn.
Any other comments or questions? I do have a suggestion. I think that I'm not sure who wouldn't be convinced that there's a problem with what you've brought forward and how we are dealing with these names. If you want, I'm happy to either draft a notice of motion or work with you to put a notice of motion to council. That's probably the fastest way. And I can't imagine anyone at council isn't going to agree at an absolute minimum to review the policy and to update it and to see how we can fix it. So I'm happy to work with you, or if there's another counselor that you feel more comfortable with, that's the.
No, it's fine. You're the chair of this committee. If you wish to take the presentation I have and move it along the chain, that's great, because that saves me having to go and redo this and I mean, this is a recorded meeting. If any other counselor wants to watch the presentation and the discussion that's unfolded, they're able to. But if you need something else from me, you think as you go through that, by all means, you can reach out. But I was just looking at that as maybe you being the conduit to take it.
Yes, and I'm happy to do that. And I think that the best way to do it is a notice for motion. Again, I can't imagine anyone's not want to move that forward. And then basically give staff direction to come back with a report on how to best deal with this.
One of the points that I probably didn't highlight on is this meeting is September 11th. Remembrance Day is effectively 2 months from this meeting. my hope was that we don't get into this bureaucratic loop of, you know, a week and then a month and then another meeting. Is there's some way that small gains can be made for some of these things between now and actually Remembrance Day of this year. And I don't know what those are, but that was some of the hope in presenting it now.
Well, I'm happy to commit to submit notice of motion in the next. We can't get it on this agenda, it'll be on that.
Sorry. I'm just going to say, new signage is going to require money. But this committee has money somewhere, some amount, that perhaps some of it could be directed to signage.
We'll leave it up to staff to figure out, once we get to that point, how things will be.
I just mean if council's to say, well, we don't have the money to do it.
Can't imagine.
Well, it could be one or two.
Yeah, I'll just speak up through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you as well for the presentation. And I do have obviously your presentation and the list of items to address. And pursuing a council motion for sure helps, but there's also things like keeping that inventory of names on deck, ready to go, doing a circulation with the region, getting the ball moving in some aspects, we can certainly work towards as well. Sure.
I'll try to capture all of those.
Yeah.
And one last comment, is everything I look at now to do with sport or music or heritage is all in the tourism lens. And I think of Mr. Watt's presentation and go, okay, well, the end result is if we have more poppies on signs, does that look good to our community? And the answer is yes. People coming in from outside are going to go, wow, there are a lot of people that served, because I would notice, you know, I think a lot of people notice, becoming more aware. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other final comments? No, seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Christopher. Item 7.1, memorandum from senior planner Reed Heritage Permit application file HPA-2023-06, 56 Spruce Street. We have a presentation from the applicant. Welcome, Rocco and Tina. Good evening. You have 5 minutes. Sorry.
That presentation made me proud to be an Aurora resident. It was beautiful. Okay. So we're the proud owners of 56 Spruce Street. We're planning a little addition on the back, and this is what we're here to present to you guys today. Okay, so the project is 56 Spruce. It backs onto the church. I don't know if everyone's familiar with the streets in the area. It's on the just basically on the east side of Spruce. Sorry, west side of Spruce. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're a little out of order, I think, on the slides, but are we allowed to go forward and then back? The next one should be the site plan. So basically, there's an existing 2-story dwelling there. It's a heritage home with a addition that was done in, I think, around the mid-90s, and an existing garage where you can see right there. Our new addition is basically going to be the back. We're trying to make it so you can't really see anything from the street. So we're going to keep the setback on the side, which is about 9 feet. So you don't see anything on the side of the house. And basically the existing garage is going to remain. It's just going to be recladded with the new board and batten that we're choosing for the new addition. Then there's a bit of a proposed deck in the back there. Can we go back to the other slide? Sorry. So it's a new 2-story addition at the rear of the dwelling. The first floor will be about 550 square feet. The second floor, currently the second floor actually only has part of the footprint. So that's why it seems like it's a lot bigger than the first floor, but in reality, it actually only extends the 550 square feet. The existing garage is going to remain, connect to the new addition. The garage will increase by 74 square feet because it's attaching to the addition right now, or we're proposing that it attaches to the addition. The existing garage will be treated with a new board and batten. We're gonna add a gable and a dormer and some accent siding to kind of make it look like, you know, it's separate from the house. We're not really doing much because we love the look of the house. I don't know if everyone has seen it. It's a beautiful home. So we're not touching any windows. Or any window openings. We're replacing the windows, but they're going to be heritage style double hung windows. The wood door, the front door is currently a newer style fiberglass door. We're going to be replacing that with a solid oak wood door, which is going to lend more towards the historical value of the house. And no work or modification on the front facade except the windows and the front doors. So this is a little rendering. The garage, like I said, is existing. It's just going to be recladded. Everything that you see there, the yellow buffer yellow brick. And the two doors, one above and one below, are going to be replaced with a heritage style 4-panel oak door. The glass transom, which is actually originally had a glass transom, is going to remain. So the glass transom on the main door is going to remain up above. Next slide, please. That's going to be the back elevation. Next slide. This is going to be the side with the existing garage. Next slide. This is going to be the south side. So you see the existing brick there, and then that's going to be basically the massing of the addition. The new addition is basically those two windows on the back there. The other area there is the existing addition that's there. So this is the color scheme. This is the style door that we're going for. There's a carriage style garage door. The windows, we tried not to go with, we didn't really like the black. We want to try to stay with more, maybe like an olive green window that's kind of going to lend to the historical value of the house, which what we believe to be more the colors in that era. This is going to be sorry, if you can go back, the door is not going to be painted. It's going to be it's going to be like an oak or some sort of stained oak. We just made that door because that was the style of door that we're going to be putting in with the transom up above. Next slide, please. One thing we should point out is that the addition is going to require no tree removal whatsoever. So there's no trees to be harmed in the addition. The addition is in the back. And like we said, we kept it away from the setback. Right now, the existing house is set back 9 feet from the property. We're allowed to go 5 feet, but we decided not to do that just so you don't see the addition on the side of the house. Existing heritage details to remain, including all the brickwork, window openings, woodwork on the balcony, which is original, that's all staying. The porch and all roof lines at the front of the house is going to remain exactly the same. The massing and size are required setbacks and height restrictions by law and the heritage plan. No impact on the streetscape. So there's no porches or decks or anything like that happening on the front of the house. Design and materials we feel complement the area. I think we've done a good job of what we've picked. Again, we're going to add that distinct border on the side of the garage because we are attaching the garage to the house. Adding that border is going to try to provide that separation and make it look more like a coach house that's separated. The connection to the garage is important to our family just for easier direct access in the winter months. And we have people in our family that have accessibility issues. So that's the reason why we're connecting everything together like that. Next slide, please. Some examples of it's very hard to say, this is an example of what we want to do, but these are some of the houses, which are similar layout. 11 Catherine, that brick is very similar to ours. 31 Catherine, which is under construction right now. They're very similar with the garage kind of in the back attached to the addition. I believe that one is on Catherine as well, but closer to the east side of Catherine. But that one is a little bit different. And that one, I believe, the one lower in the middle is on Spruce Street as well. Next slide, please. I think that was it. Okay. Okay, any questions?
So first, can I just get a mover and a seconder to the item on the floor? I'll just read it so you know what you're voting for. Number one, the memorandum regarding heritage permit application filed HPA 2023-06 56 Spruce Street be received, and that the Heritage Advisory Committee comments regarding heritage permit application filed HPA 2023-06 56 Spruce Street be received and referred to staff for consideration and further action as appropriate. Someone like to put that on the floor. Bob. Jeff. Comments or questions?
Go ahead, Jeff.
I'd just like to thank you both, obviously through you, Mr. Chair, for coming in today with your proposal. I mean, it's nice to see something that respects the guidelines of this district so well, something that checks all the boxes, and I fully support this proposal.
Thank you.
No concerns whatsoever.
Yes, I've got a question. The addition, how does that, it increases the footprint on the lot, and does that fit in with the town's bylaws regarding square footage coverage, of the dwelling with respect to the property itself?
Excellent question. Yeah, we are actually way under the percentage. We're definitely not interested in having a massive 4,000, 5,000 square foot home. We're just trying to make it a little useful. Yes, but to answer your question, I think we're allowed to go up to a footprint of like 4,000 square feet for the main floor.
Yes.
So like that would be 8,000 altogether. And I think we're just a little over 3,000 for the entire project. So yeah, the massing is definitely there.
Any other comments?
I live on Catherine.
Oh,
Welcome to the neighborhood.
thank you. We love it there. So excited.
In terms of the heritage aspect, I like what I'm hearing of your plans, and the view from this streetscape is essentially unchanged.
Thank you.
Kevin, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I agree. It was nice to see something that seemed to fit with the character of the area. My wife used to live at 31 Catherine, so I'm very familiar with that area. So yeah, a little bit sad to see this under construction, but hopefully they're doing a nice job. The question I have is, is there anything at the back of the house that's being demolished? I was trying to pull it up on Google Earth, but you're adding on only, or is there something that's being demolished to accommodate the addition?
So basically the first floor where the existing addition is, because the architect couldn't and the engineer couldn't get everything to fit properly, we have to tear down the addition, but the foundation of the existing addition is going to stay. It's just going to be basically rebuilt to level the floors off to the existing floor of the existing house and then added.
Is that okay? So is that part that's being demolished? Was that an addition as itself?
Yeah,
or is that
yes, it was. Yeah, it was an addition in the mid-90s, we believe.
Okay. I just wanted, just out of curiosity, but wanting to make sure that part of the building wasn't an important part of the building's original character. that was the only, if that has been looked at as part of your proposal, that'd be something that I would add, is that you'd want to make sure, which it sounds like you have, that that part of the building or that addition was not a significant part of the original. So,
Yeah, so the addition was, we did pinpoint it to around the mid-90s. We tried to find a permit for it in the city records. We weren't able to. But it was a board and batten addition with newer style, lumber framing and half-inch drywall and things of that nature, so that we're comfortable knowing that that wasn't a historical. We also have pictures of the original historical house, and it doesn't have any addition in the back. I do have some if everybody wanted to take a look.
no, that sounds good. That, I mean, that answers my question. Like you said, if it's the 90s, then that's not something that I would be worried about. I was just curious, looking at the picture and thinking about the way those houses were built. So
that's
thank you.
kind of the original house there. Everyone can see it. Kind of far for you, but
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Okay.
Motion to approve. All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried.
thank you.
Thank you. Information items, we have no information items, new business. Does anyone have any new business?
I take it this is where I request
Yes,
time?
correct.
Yes, I have a presentation I'd like to make in regards to, through you, Mr. Chair, bringing something from the past forward that had previously gone to council. The reason I'm bringing this to the Heritage Committee is sort of be preemptive. That there will be probably requests going out in the community for ideas or interests in a particular heritage designated building near Library Square. So as I said, this is just to bring sort of up to date what's happened since my presentation. I think the committee and the public will be glad to know what has evolved since my presentation. So I guess I should be quiet and do the presentation. So can we get can I get the first slide up there? I'll try to follow it on my
Yeah. You don't have to say if you don't want to. It's probably interesting, but.
No, it is.
Okay.
I think you like history, you'll want to stay. Okay, so several years ago, I appeared before council on a proposal of a project called Victrolia Hall. Essentially what Victrolia Hall is, about 25 years ago, I predicted that vinyl would make a resurgence. And more the main reason was that I knew it had done something special for me that I believed it could possibly be shared with the community. The reason I knew is it's not that I have a background in DJing in this community back into the 70s and 80s up to about 1990, more recently. It's because I was.
Sorry, but can you just grab one of these and just hold on?
Sorry,
Yeah.
thank you. So I was actually born with a wonderful gift, sensory gift, that I have zero hearing on my right side and only partial on my left. Now, some people would say it might be a challenge, but no, I was born with musicians' hearing. So I live with what all musicians want to do to hear great is mono. So I knew that it was a special format. Can we go to the next slide? I started, and the next one. I started driving Ontario, acquiring any collection I could get my hands on, also with an awareness that every piece that I kept out was keeping out of the landfill. That if I could find enough material and put it into good use into a community, that it could affect a lot of people. Now, since I did this proposal, by the way, with the help of others, I put many portable units in people's homes, people with ASD, dementia, Alzheimer's, PTSD, and small units of vinyl. I'll give you an example. One young man with ASD was tearing his family's home apart. Very intelligent, but not able to modify his behavior and keep regulated. I did an environmental assessment, thought music might be a positive answer. It was utilized. That individual years later now has begun university. He's the second case. I just got a phone call from another family. The person who was institutionalized with helping with music, analog. They're now going from an institution today into their first residence. They're 52 years old. So can I go to the next slide? So where I get my passion from, my grandfather was a founder of the Aurora Legion. He helped build the Aurora Legion. Thanks, Chris's presentation reminded me a lot of this. He served in both the First and Second World War, and as I said, he helped build the Legion. Next slide, please. Again, this collection now has evolved into over 125,000 pieces, which are through some help with some friends, et cetera, have been archived. And go to the next slide. This is the multitude of some of the collections we picked up. This collection you're seeing was in a garage in Markham. I had to buy it blind. It turned out that what you're looking at is actually the collection from the historic Peter Dunne's Vinyl Museum in Toronto. And what happened to be in the Peter Dunne Vinyl Museum's collection was half the original collection of the DJ vinyl collection from the Canadian Aurora right for Aurora. All the CRR was written all over it. I'm like, my goodness, they've come back to Aurora. Keep going. The next one. By the way, the Canadian collection pieces in that Peter Dunne collection, and now with the mask, is in a secure warehouse with about 30 feet, well, actually 2 rows, so 60 feet of nothing but Canadian material. It's probably the largest Canadian archive in the country. Go to the next one. So I've had to work this with help from friends again. This is in a basement, working in tough conditions, continuing for this to evolve. Go to the next one. This is an artifact that was found in the collection, and I posted it on Facebook. It came out of the Peter Dunne collection, and it turned out to be a letter signed by David Briggs, who was Neil Young's early producer. David Briggs died at 51 years old. I believe it was of cancer. This, from Jamie Vernon, who wrote the Canadian Pop Music Encyclopedia, said, this is an archive of Canadian magnificence. Like, it's seriously, it's a big, big piece to have. Go to the next one, please. These are more pieces. We found a lot of Aurora connections. This was actually a St. Andrews. Go to the next one. St. Andrews carol record found in the collection, out of a collection of Sault Ste. Marie, and in it was original carol service from the 60s here in Aurora, in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. I'm bringing, with the help of others, artifacts back to Aurora. Go to the next one, please. So back in, what year is that? 2017, so 5 years ago now, for our birthday, a lot of great people involved, helped out this, town staff. We had 550 people show up in July in Aurora, and the arena was hot. But the reason that we did this event was we wanted to showcase something that had never been done. It was 150 songs, all Canadian, all dance format, and utilized every space in the arena. Is what could the collection do? And by the way, a lot of people came and they said it was really powerful for their mental health. Go to the next one, please. So what can the collection do? This came out of the collection. And as you see, this is a Led Zeppelin record stamped Lakeshore Psychiatric Hospital. This is, as you're aware, one of the large hospitals in Toronto, now Comber College. If that doesn't tell you that music heals, nothing will. Go to the next one. So again, we mentioned the Canadian roller rink. The Canadian roller rink brought tens of thousands, 100,000. I don't know. The numbers are astronomical that came here from out of town. And what did it was the programming. It was the music that brought people here from Buffalo, Detroit, all over Ontario. Music, it's like the Pied Piper. Next one, please. So this is another example, a promotional photo that was done. It shows you the magnificence. All the categories in this would have been archived now and are being split up and now used in programming in the community, like, for example, the Aurora Farmers Market. What I'm sitting on is every piece of that is all Canadian programming. Every one is a Canadian release. So it gives you the magnificence of the collection. Go to the next piece, please. So this is another person that got involved, started using the collection, and what we started doing was, again, putting portable units in people's homes. And now I'm going to the next part, is curating visual displays that I'm getting requests in the community, including an interest from Town Square, for example, possibly at me building installations of, let's say, 100 covers honoring the Aurora Horse Show. By the way, that curation is already done. And I've had some people see it and go, wow, the media will want to see this. So go to the next one, please. So this is an example. I brought the programming of the analog to the Legion, to the Aurora Farmers Market and other places. It was more of a thesis. It was to prove that during a troubling time, during, for example, COVID, weather could make a positive impact on people in one of the most trying times in history. The answer is, if you speak to the board of the farmers market and the guests in the community, the answer is yes. And did it change the farmers market in a big way? Yeah, the numbers have gone from a few hundred to now close to 3,000. And they do give the programming a lot of credit. No one in Canada did this, has done this, and especially during a pandemic. Go to the next one, please. So this was another example at the Legion. We did a memory game. It was a soundtrack event where I did kind of an audio name that tune. And a lot of people there, older crowds, said it was very healing. Go to the next one. Programming is everything about. This is an example of one of the listening stations that went into somebody's home. Quite simple. Give them a library. Somebody in a long-term home autism treatment center. We're loaning libraries, small libraries, curated. Next piece, please. This is the City of Toronto's reference library. They have 15,000 pieces of their database. I've gone down and checked it out. It's pretty ragtag. I'm not knocking them. We now, again, on the database that I have put on the same format, Discogs, it's called, that City of Toronto was using, I've logged in 15,000 pieces. And by logging in those 15,000 pieces in this global database, it's resulted in 48 emails from across the world asking to access for certain pieces in the collection, that some of the pieces, they're the only ones documented. And there's like 90, 95 people looking for access to the material. The next one. So this is a present wall of vinyl that is alphabetized, categorized. This is what I'm pulling out now for programming into the community that's bringing big numbers to the community. The next one. So this has kind of changed now because with help from people, for example, a gentleman who's a retired military captain, retired from the crisis team at Ottawa University, has been a consultant. We've changed our plan. Right now, all as we need, or I need, and with volunteers that I have, is space. All the materials are in inventory. Space is the only thing that's needed. Money is not needed because what I'm asking for awareness on, and hopefully council will see this in staff, is a first year. This can be done like as a sole proprietorship, space provided, and let this thing bring a life of people coming to the community to access it. Go to the next one, please. Go ahead. That's just an art piece I did signed by Rick Emmett. That's another art piece being signed. Carry on. Carry on. Carry on. So, as I said, many people that have consulted on this, from a professor at York who has 8 degrees and 3 doctorates to retired captain, I've had a lot of help on this. And there are a lot of Canadian music artists following what I'm doing and kind of cheering this on because it's creating a lot of healing and a lot of community. Go to the next one. So one of the things that I think could launch something really big with this collection is, while I've been doing this, I've been doing a lot of research on Aurora's history. I mean, I love Aurora's history. We've got a lot of untold stories. And when Paul McCartney came out and verified that the Beatles album Sgt. Pepper was named after an Aurora OPP officer, I just about lost it. Because, I mean, that's global. And there's a lot of other great stuff like that to do with music that we're not talking about. And I think we need to cherish that and sing it out and we've got all these great things like Rib Fest going on and concerts and everything. And I mean, everybody saw the end at Rib Fest. April Wine filled the Aurora Community Center in 1974 with a list of Canadian artists on a bill that if you read them then you'd go, oh, who are these guys? And they all became superstars. So there's a lot of history in this. Go to the next one, please. So again, this is another example. It is proven music. Doctors are now prescribing it. Somebody has said to me, well, why don't you go and take a music therapy program? Well, I tried. I went to Wilfrid Laurier. I've gone to several different universities and tried to get in the program. The stipulation for doing the program is music therapists play an instrument. When I told them I wanted to bring 120,000 plus piece archived library that had been used already in autism and PTSD and everything, they said, no one's ever done this before. You're a pioneer. So I'm on my own on this with help of people in the community. Go to the next one. So as I said, I think since this presentation at council and now, what have we seen? Let's see. So proof in the ASD category. Definitely those affected with PTSD and Alzheimer's, people at the Legion, said it was very impactful. The farmers market. During COVID, I was so proud to work with the town to do an outdoor skate on February 14th, Family Day weekend, that we were pretty much turning people away. Spinning vinyl outdoors in -5 weather. It really had people enjoy tears of joy. Pop-up center downtown, supporting the community garage sale. I was so happy to work with staff, and they said it created a fun environment. People were moving and grooving while they were shopping. And so basically, as I said, that's where we're at with it. Since the presentation, things have really evolved. And I really think that hopefully through either staff or with help in the community, this can have somewhere where it can be accessed more. I'm getting requests from senior residences, local musicians, people who are looking for copyright research. I did some research. I'll close with this. Peter Foldy is a Canadian music artist, has a Juno, successful director, did a movie in the 80s that did quite well. He's a York alumni. He's now doing a play called Spin. I'd love to see this come to Town Square. The concept is it's about Canadian music artists who had to move to California to get exposure. That's the story. Peter asked me, he gave me a list of 25 Canadian songs that says, can you find the 45 RPM records? I said, I'll try. I found 21 of the 25. And I said, Peter, why was that so bad? Why am I doing this? And he says, David, on those 45s, it's the only place that the copyright is there of who has the rights to the music. So there's a lot of unfound history in this collection that people want access to, and I'd love to present it. But again, it's now the time where it's a legacy project. And hopefully, like I said, I have the town's ears, the staff's ears, and we can take another look at this, but we'd like a shot at Victoria Hall. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done.
Let's do business. So why don't we get a motion to receive the presentation? I get a motion. Bob, John, any comments or questions? Put it as an agenda item because it's so thorough.
So
Any
what do
questions for what?
sorry, for you, John. One of your questions seems to be, or you're asking for storage. That was the big thing.
More storage. I have
More storage. You don't have enough places to put all these artifacts.
So the problem is right now, it is in storage and it is in literally I have an aisleway to work with right now. The public is asking for access to material on a bigger level. And what it is trying to find a resource that people can come to it. There's been, as I said, we've had people wanting to, photographers wanting to access the cover art.
Mhm.
The cover art, interesting cover art is gone like this. They're talking about it on radio stations now, never have before. It's a forgotten category in music. And a lot of young music artists are telling me they want to physically see the stuff because they are more inspired by that tangible searching and finding those little things, right? They're, well, you know, artists are, we're a unique breed and we do things, you know, outside the box. So if they were looking for a box to come to, that's what we're looking for, you know, and it's not asking for funding, asking for space, trying to find space that this collection can be accessed. So.
If the town, if you were able to store and Victoria Hall becomes accessible to the public, how does the security work? Do you think?
So that was one of the things I was questioning with the staff was, and this has been in conversation a lot, was the two concerns were, is Victoria Hall would be, is it accessible? Which it is now, you know, but it is also being made accessible. The secondary thing right now, I will tell you, I got to admit, I do have a concern with the collection. I mean, look, when the CBC approaches, it's called the Hole in North Bay. It's actually, it's a fallout shelter, asking for access to store their audio and visual archives. You know, they're concerned of, you know, they want that history to be preserved. My thoughts are the safest place is to be with a corporation that has security in a building. Hopefully there is in Victoria Hall. It's everywhere else. But that is the only other concern. The accessibility is there is security. And if it's not there, I'm sure we would provide it.
But you'd also need staff to be open, to have it open to the public. You need some staff supervision.
So at the present time, the proposal for example, if we were given space, and when I say we, I'm talking people who have consulted and done research and helped out and volunteers. I would be a full-time support person there, helping with the collection with volunteers and support people coming in. And in that first year, I would sustain being able to operate it. That cost of like manning it or personing it would be zero the first year. Proof of concept is where I'm going with this, because I think I've shown proof of concept out in the community. But I'm telling you right now, I keep on saying that word tourism. This is tourism. I've seen what the city of Toronto has done with their archives, and it's on the 5th floor of the research library at Yonge and Bloor. It's nothing like I want to showcase this collection that people want to come from all over and go, wow. And it's ready to go. All the fixtures and everything are all ready to go.
So I would just say, what are next steps? A presentation to council?
So this went to council once already. It was my understanding from that night as we referred to staff. COVID hit. So I've been at this rodeo once before, but times have changed now. Like I said, there's a lot more new information on what this has done for the community. And like I said, I can't take credit for all this. I did the hard lifting and finding the collection and bringing it in, but I've had a lot of help behind the scenes and you know, very humbly, and not asked for a dime. So I'd love to get advice from this committee or, you know, from staff. You guys are a lot smarter than I am on the business side.
I just, if you don't mind, I just have first of all, I'm just so profoundly blown away by this collection. It is a passion project, and it's just such an impressive archive of music, which I think, you know, you were right when you predicted that vinyl would be back, because I can tell you that every young person that I know has a record player in their bedroom playing music off of records. So I just am so excited to see that collection. I wonder if there's a way, and again, this, you know, I'm throwing it out there. Is there a way by which it could be housed in the archives that are being built, or is there a way that it could be connected to the library in some way? Because I understand the security, the need for people to use these items properly. They are very, you know, they need to be handled carefully. But it would be so wonderful if there was a way of really making it widely accessible to all residents of Aurora, as well as anybody else who would want access to it. Because as you've said, I think lots of people would be interested in this collection. And it would be a shame for it to not be put on display for anybody who wanted access to it. And I think that what you'd find, I don't think we often think about ephemera like records as being something that people are going to be seeking as research, as evidence, but I think that's not true. And so I think if we create opportunities for it to be used in a safe environment where it is showcased and really upheld as this, beautiful example of what can happen when a resident follows their passion and creates such an impressive collection, I think it would say a lot about what is important to the town of Aurora, but it would also allow that archive to be shared widely with anyone who would be interested in using it. So I think that, you've got something that people definitely should have easy access to. And I would hope that the town would create a way to facilitate that. And even if it did cost money, that would be money very, very well spent, because as you said, the Toronto Reference Library, their collection on the 5th floor it's okay, but it's not that impressive. So I think it would be a shame for us to not, maximize the opportunity for people to access a collection of that magnitude.
So, David,
Can I respond to,
oh,
if I may, through you, Mr. Chair? The library was approached several years. Well, actually, let me go back. I was approached by staff and residents in the library many years ago. And this is almost a quote. They said, "Mr. Hurd, can we get a vinyl cafe here in the library?" And I said, well, no, because Vinyl Cafe is owned by Stuart McLean. He's an author and you may know him. But I said, how about a vinyl lounge, which actually Mr. Downey came up with that name when we did the songbook. But the library's gone in a different direction. They've gone very online and they powers that be didn't want to go in that direction. I'm okay with that. Town Square, I've spoken to Mr. Rose and Donahue, and the space is pretty much spoken for. It's not something that's Victoria Hall used to be a library, and it is a small space. But one thing that I'm really good at is utilizing space, and it wouldn't take much to turn that into, again, a tourist destination. And the BIA has expressed interest. They have already, members and a member of council have already said they believe this could help really, along with things around the downtown, this could help enhance the downtown core. And look at all the seniors residents building going up in that area. Don't you think the residents at the United Church would love to come over and, get out and put a pair of headphones on and go back in time and come back for a little while? Because I've seen it happen over and over.
David, two words stand out, seem to be storage and accessibility. Okay, so I'm sure you've considered this. If you digitize all of this and make it accessible online, we'll say, then people can do research and then follow a specific thing rather than come into a room and say, oh, I'd like to hear about something on this, where it takes personnel and time and money. I'm just wondering whether, if it's possible to digitize it, just like they've done with many of the documentation that's held in Rome, okay, in the Vatican. IBM was involved in this many years ago to digitize all of the artifacts that they had, and then it was available to across the world. So I'm wondering if there was funds available to get somebody to curate it, or you're saying this is happening now, but also to digitize it and then make it available, let's say online or for some kind of fee, and you can do a lot more investigation on each individual can, rather than try and come physically and line up at the door. That's just a
So to answer that through Mr. Chair, so the difference between, you can get out to the globe with digitizing, but the difference between digitizing it and the actual physical is it's analog. And it's been a hard journey to get awareness out there. I mean, when Steve Jobs of Apple says, I would rather listen to a record than an MP3 or a download, you're onto something. Our brains are analog.
I don't mean digitize the music. I mean, the covers, for example.
Oh.
Say, if you could digitize that, then people could search through.
Yeah.
And come and do close-ups about who the artists are, when it was played, what kind of instruments they used. If that was digitized, you could then narrow it down to a particular one or two record covers with the vinyl record inside, and then you could go after that.
So yeah, the part of the digitizing, some of that's already being done. Discogs, which is the world's largest database for analog collectors. I've put in a lot of artwork that has never been up on Discogs, especially of a lot of Canadian material. Excuse me. One of the things I've been doing, for example, is what will happen is these archive collections that a program. So example, I've done several programs at the farmers market. Those are now stored together and can be brought out.
Mhm.
But excuse me, the art collection, for example, like 100 pieces honoring the Aurora Show, which is completed. Those, we're looking for a space to display those, but they will be photographed and then put online so the rest of the world can enjoy it.
Mhm.
No one else has curated a collection. Some people don't have 100 records in their record collection.
Mhm.
And I went, how could I, through music, honor we don't have horror show anymore, through visuals, and went and curated that. So there's a lot of angles to this, I agree. But the physical part of it for the public to access the analog is, again,
Mhm.
it's really a healing tool. It really is, in so many different ways.
Okay, thank you.
Hmm.
Any other questions in the committee? I would give the library a second shot, even to have a discussion with them. It ticks off a few boxes. Whether they have space for the entire collection, I don't know, but obviously there's staff there. There's a whole system in place in terms of someone coming, seeing a particular thing, a book or a record.
Yeah, it's a drawing card from.
Yeah, and there's
Mhm.
already a
Yes.
lot of people going there. I would give it another shot.
Okay.
On the library board, if you need help, if you want to do presentations to them, I'm more than willing to
Okay,
help.
excuse me.
I also want to, sorry, I just want to add one thing. I think to circle back to the idea of the library, you're right. There was a period of time where libraries were really moving towards just digitizing everything. But I don't know, David, if you've had a chance to go to the archives at the Richmond Hill Public Library. Have you ever
Yes.
been to the public history room? So that, I think, is a fantastic example of a direction that a lot of municipalities are heading in, where they are creating collections of all kinds of different sources. And I think, records are a perfect example of that. So they even have at that library collections of phone books, what we used to recycle. They have collections of them because they're evidence. And so I think that, with Aurora putting so much time and effort and money into building an archive center and the immense value of this collection, I think the library would be foolish to not take you up on this opportunity. Because I do think a lot of other municipalities are headed in that direction. And I think, as I said, the one in Richmond Hill is a really good example of that. They have all kinds of sources there, things that we would normally recycle or get rid of. They've created, a catalog of those, and people are coming from all over, not just for tourism purposes, but for academic research. And so a collection like the one that you're talking about has significant merit when it comes to research. And even there are Governor General's awards for community collections such as this. So there's a national opportunity to be recognized for this type of outreach that you're working really hard on providing to the citizens of Aurora. So I think there's a lot of merit to it, and I think coming back to the library is a good idea. And if they wouldn't take you up on that, then that would be a really bad decision on their part, because a lot of other municipalities would be happy to house a collection like that.
Yeah, I would do two things. I would reach out to the thing, and I would get Cynthia to be one of your spokespersons.
Yeah, thank you, Cynthia.
Sign me
Very
up.
much so.
Sign me
Yeah.
up. I would.
I was just going to say that from a value standpoint, I don't know whether the collection is more valuable because it is very valuable. I mean, you can go on our Discogs database and do the math. It's for something that I kept out of landfills, no kidding, it's $1 million to $3 million collection without question. But here's the thing though, I took a shot. I could have ended up having to pay probably tens of thousands of dollars or more to Miller to turn it over to them for them to take it to their, their facility if it wasn't usable. I was lucky, but think of the tons of material that I kept out of the landfill. And by the way, some of the materials, I just took a big stack of records over to the gallery in the downtown core recently. And hopefully they're going to do it, is they're going to prime them and use them as round canvases. I mean, what a great way to recycle something that we don't know what to do with. No one's going to drop a needle on it. Well, let's drop some paint on it. There's a million things that you can do with this stuff. And, somebody else is going to come think outside the box and help this along even more. This is a community project. This isn't about me. I've been the catalyst, and I just do it because I love Aurora.
Inspiring. Any further comments? I'll completely out of order, but the vote we receive. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. That is it, unless anyone else has any other new business.
One last thing, just to bring forward that on Friday, one of our wonderful partners on Doors Open Aurora was David Tomlinson, famous for Merlin's Hollow, and his wife Deirdre. David passed away on Friday. He gave us an incredible gift every year when he opened that to the public, but to our community, and he's going to be sadly missed. I just wanted to bring that forward to the committee as such a heritage and horticulture, an amazing asset to our community.
Yes, in addition to Merlin's Hollow, I think what will be one day a very famous nature reserve that's named after him, and I think a lifetime project for him.
Yeah, totally.
Any other new business? Seeing none, can I get a motion to adjourn? John, Bob, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thanks, everyone.
So when did David pass?
Friday.
Friday.
I'll
everybody.
always
Have a great
remember it
night.
because it was my birthday.